My wife secretly inherited $300, $0 from her estranged brother, then convinced me to sign away half our house in savings, only to find out she's been planning to leave me for her friend's wealthy ex-husband all along. It all started with a sudden windfall that I never saw coming. One day, out of nowhere, my wife, Lisa, told me she inherited $300, $0 from her estranged brother. At first, I thought it was just another one of her stories. She's always been good at spinning tailies, making herself the victim, twisting facts to fit her narrative. But then she showed me the paperwork, the deposit receipt, and I guess I believed her. Who wouldn't? It was a lot of money, enough to change our lives, and Lisa was acting like she was on top of the world, already planning how to spend it. She'd been acting strange for a while before that, though. Little things, ignoring my calls, being overly secretive about her phone, disappearing for hours and giving me flimsy excuses. But I brushed it off. I trusted her, or at least I thought I did. Our marriage wasn't perfect. She could be bitchy, quick to lie, quick to dismiss my feelings, but I figured we'd get through it. We had a good life, or so I thought. Then came the day she handed me the inheritance papers. She was smirking, almost triumphant, like she'd already won some kind of game. She kept saying she was going to invest it, start a business, maybe buy a new house. I was happy for her, happy, or so I told myself. But something gnawed at me. I couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just an inheritance. It was the key to something much darker. A few days later, I noticed she was acting even more distant. She was sneaking around, hiding her phone, deleting texts. When I asked her about her new business ideas, she brushed me off, saying I was just paranoid. But I was. I had a gut feeling that she was hiding something. And then I found the messages. Just a quick glance at her phone while she was in the shower, something I normally wouldn't do, but I was desperate for answers. That's when I saw the text to someone named Mark, her friend's ex-husband. They were talking about meeting up, about sex, about how she was planning to leave me for him once she got her hands on more money. My stomach dropped. My heart started pounding. I couldn't believe what I was reading. Lisa, my wife, was planning her escape, and she'd been lying to me all along. It hit me hard. I'd been blind. She had convinced me to sign away half our house in savings, all under the pretense of building a future. Meanwhile, she was plotting to run off with some guy who was supposedly just a friend, but clearly more. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious all at once. How could she do this? How could she lie so effortlessly? I felt like I didn't even know the woman I married. That night I confronted her. I told her I knew about Mark, about her plans, about the inheritance. She looked surprised for a second, then her face twisted into this bitchy smirk. "You're overreacting, John," she said, rolling her eyes. "It's none of your business who I talk to. I'm not leaving you, I just needed some excitement. You're so paranoid, always accusing me of cheating." But I saw right through her. She was lying again. She always lied. When she was caught, the worst part, her excuses. She said she was just talking to Mark because he was helping her with some investment stuff, that they were just friends, that I was making a big deal out of nothing. But I knew better. I could see the flicker in her eyes, the guilt, the desperation to cover her tracks. I felt sick. My mind was racing. How long had this been going on? How much had she lied? She was always bitchy, manipulative, and she knew exactly how to twist things around to make herself look innocent. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I knew she was planning something, and I was starting to see the cracks in our marriage, cracks that ran deeper than I'd ever imagined. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about everything I'd uncovered. The inheritance, her secret meetings, the lies. I was angry but also hurt, more than I'd ever been in my life. I'd trusted her with everything, my life, my future, my heart. And now I realized she'd been planning her exit all along, using me and my trust as a stepping stone. I felt like a fool, and I knew I had to do something, but I didn't know what yet. All I knew was that I couldn't keep living like this, in the dark, wondering when she'd finally walk out that door for good. The next few days were a whirlwind of emotions. I couldn't focus at work, kept replaying everything I'd found, trying to piece together how long she'd been lying. Lisa, my wife, was still acting normal around the house, smiling, cooking dinner, pretending everything was fine. but I could see the cracks behind her eyes, the way she avoided my gaze when I looked too long. She knew I was onto her, and I think she was trying to play it cool, hoping I'd forget or back off. I decided I needed more proof. I couldn't just confront her with a few texts and expect her to crack. I needed to catch her in the act, or at least find out how deep her plans went. So I started digging more into her phone, her emails, her bank accounts, anything that could give me more clarity. I also reached out to Mark, the guy she'd been texting. I didn't want to seem desperate, but I needed to know what was really going on. It turned out Mark was more involved than I thought. He admitted they'd been talking for months, long before the inheritance, long before I even suspected. He said Lisa had told him she was planning to leave me once she had enough money, that she was tired of my constant nagging and her boring life with me. Her words. She painted me as some kind of controlling idiot who didn't understand her needs. I couldn't believe the audacity. One night I decided I had enough. I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. I called her into the living room and told her I knew everything about the inheritance, her plans, her affair. Her face went pale for a second, then she snapped back into her usual bitchy persona. "John, you're overreacting. You don't know what you're talking about," she spat, crossing her arms. "I was just talking to Mark about some business stuff. You're always so paranoid. Maybe you're the one cheating, huh?" Her words stung, but I was beyond caring. I told her I had proof, that I was done being played. She laughed coldly, then said, "You think you're so smart, don't you? Well, I've got news for you. You're not going to stop me. I'm leaving, and I've already made arrangements. The inheritance was just the start. You think I was with you for the house and savings? Please. I married you for convenience, John. You're boring, predictable, and I need more excitement. Mark's just the beginning." That was the moment I realized her plan was bigger than I thought. She wasn't just planning to cheat on me. She was planning to take everything and walk away. Her bitchy attitude, the lies, the manipulation, they all pointed to her being a classic narcissist who saw me as nothing more than a stepping stone. I felt rage rise in me. All the times I'd been patient, forgiving, trying to keep our marriage afloat, I'd been a fool. She used me, lied to me, and now she was ready to leave me with nothing. The inheritance, the house, the savings, all of it was her weapon, her way out. That night I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. My head was pounding. I kept thinking about what life would be like without her, how I'd been betrayed by the woman I loved. I felt a mixture of heartbreak and fury, heartbreak because I still loved her, and fury because she'd played me for a fool. I knew I had to act fast. I couldn't let her walk out with everything she wanted. I had to protect what was mine. The next morning, I started making plans. I contacted a lawyer, looked into how I could secure my rights to the house and savings. I also decided that I wouldn't let her get away with her lies. I was going to confront her again, but this time I'd do it with all the facts laid out in front of her. I wasn't going to be the fool anymore. I was done being her pawn, her doormat. Whatever was coming next, I knew I had to be prepared for everything. Over the next few days, I threw myself into planning. I couldn't sleep properly, kept waking up in cold sweats, thinking about everything she'd done. Lisa was still acting like she had no idea I was onto her, but I knew better. She was nervous, tense, and I could see her trying to keep her cool. I decided I'd get her exactly where I wanted her, cornered with no way out. I spent hours on the phone with my lawyer, making sure I understood the legalities of the inheritance and the house. I learned that, despite her inheritance, I had some rights, especially since we were married and had joint assets. I also found out that signing away half the house without proper legal counsel could be challenged, especially if I could prove she'd been manipulative or deceitful. That gave me a spark of hope. Maybe I wasn't entirely at her mercy. One afternoon, I caught her in a lie. She was supposed to meet her friend, Sarah, for coffee, but I saw her sneaking out the back door instead. I followed her at a distance, pretending I was out for a walk. She went into a fancy restaurant downtown where I saw her sit with Mark. They looked cozy, too cozy for just friends. I snapped some photos on my phone, feeling like I was finally getting some real evidence. That night I confronted her again. I told her I knew everything about Mark, the inheritance, her plans to leave. Her face twisted into a sneer, but she kept denying, saying I was paranoid, that I was imagining things, that I was controlling. She even had the nerve to say, You're just jealous because I'm finally happy. You're so insecure, John. Maybe you're the one cheating on me." I lost my temper. I told her that I'd had enough of her lies, that I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. I pulled out the photos I took that afternoon and laid them on the table. Her eyes widened just for a second before she recovered her bitchy composure. "You're crazy," she spat. "You're stalking me now. That's pathetic." But I wasn't backing down. I told her I was filing for divorce and I was going to fight for what's mine, our house, our savings, everything she tried to steal. I saw her eyes flicker with panic, but she masked it quickly. Her reaction was classic Lisa. She started crying, fake tears streaming down her face, sobbing about how I was ruining her life, how she'd never cheat on me, how she was just trying to make a better future. It was disgusting. I knew she'd been lying all along. Her tears were just part of her act, her way to manipulate me into feeling guilty. I felt a strange mix of anger and sadness. I'd loved her once, believed in us, trusted her. But now I saw her for what she really was, a liar, a manipulator, a user. I knew I needed to cut ties to protect myself from her schemes. I told her to pack her bags because I was calling the lawyer first thing in the morning. I wanted her out of the house as soon as possible. That night I couldn't sleep again. I sat on the couch, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in my head. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and more alone than I'd ever felt. But at the same time, I felt a strange sense of clarity. I finally saw her for who she was. Lisa had been planning her escape for months, maybe longer. She used me, lied to me, and now she was trying to walk away with everything I'd worked for. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be fights, legal battles, and probably more surprises. But I also knew I couldn't let her win. I had to stand my ground, protect what was mine, and finally free myself from her toxic grip. I told myself I'd be okay. I had to be. The morning after I confronted Lisa, I felt like I'd stepped into a different reality. My head was pounding and my stomach was in knots. I called my lawyer first thing, and we started drafting the paperwork to protect my rights. I knew she was planning to leave soon, maybe even that day, and I had to act fast. I also arranged to have a private investigator follow her, just to get more concrete proof of her plans and her relationship with Mark. While I was dealing with all that, Lisa was still pretending everything was fine. She acted sweet, almost overly so, trying to manipulate me with her fake tears and apologies. She kept saying she loved me, that she'd never do anything to hurt me, that she was just stressed out and needed a break. I didn't buy it. I saw right through her act. She was just trying to soften me up, to make me doubt myself. By mid-morning, I noticed her packing some clothes into a duffel bag. My stomach sank. I knew she was getting ready to run. I told her I wanted her to leave immediately. She threw a tantrum, crying, yelling, calling me paranoid and controlling. But I stood my ground. I told her I wasn't going to let her steal everything we had, not without a fight. Then she dropped the bomb. She said she'd already arranged for a friend to take her somewhere safe, somewhere she could start fresh without me. She even handed me a fake sob story about how she was miserable, how I'd never really loved her, how she was only staying for the sake of appearances. That was the moment I realized she'd planned this all along. She wasn't just leaving. She was leaving me cold, with no warning, no regard for what I'd been through. I called the police, not to arrest her but to make sure she couldn't just walk out with all the money and assets. They came, and I explained everything, showing them the evidence, the photos, the emails. They advised me to get a restraining order if she tried to leave without my consent. I also handed over the paperwork for the divorce, knowing I needed to start that process as soon as possible. Meanwhile, Lisa was crying, screaming, throwing her tantrum like a spoiled child. She kept insisting she was the victim, that I was ruining her life. But I saw her for what she truly was, a manipulative, selfish woman who'd used me from the start. I felt a strange mix of relief and heartbreak. Part of me still loved her, but I knew I couldn't keep living in this nightmare. The police told her to stay put until the paperwork was sorted out, and I watched her storm out of the house, her face twisted in rage and betrayal. As she left, I felt a strange sense of calm and anger all at once. I was finally taking control of my life again, reclaiming what was mine. But I also knew the emotional toll would stay with me for a long time. Betrayal cuts deep, and I'd never felt so alone. That afternoon, I sat alone in the house, staring at the empty rooms. I felt hollow, like a shell of the man I used to be. I kept thinking about everything I'd lost: trust, love, stability. But I also knew I had to move forward. I couldn't let her get away with this. I had to rebuild, to find a way to heal. I promised myself I wouldn't let her destroy me completely. I'd fight for what was left, and somehow I'd come out stronger. The days that followed were a blur of legal meetings, emotional exhaustion, and trying to piece my life back together. I was officially in the process of filing for divorce, and the reality of it hit me hard. Lisa was gone, and with her, a huge chunk of my trust and sense of security. The house felt emptier than ever, and every corner seemed to echo with memories I couldn't escape. The thing that hurt most was knowing she'd planned this for months. The inheritance, her secret meetings with Mark, her lies, everything was a carefully constructed facade. She manipulated me into signing away part of our house, all while secretly plotting her escape. I kept replaying her words, her fake tears, her sneers, her lies. It was like waking up from a bad dream, only to realize the nightmare was real. I hired a private investigator to keep tabs on her, just to be sure she didn't try to come back or pull any last-minute moves. Turns out, she'd already booked a one-way ticket to some beach town, supposedly to clear her head. I found out she'd been planning to leave with a good chunk of our savings, plus the inheritance she'd lied about. She was planning to start fresh with Mark, somewhere she thought I'd never find her. Meanwhile, I was trying to focus on myself. I started therapy to deal with the betrayal, needed help sorting through the anger, the sadness, the sense of loss. I realized how much I'd let her manipulate me, how I'd ignored the signs for so long. I also began to understand that I'd been holding on to a version of our marriage that wasn't real. Lisa was always bitchy, yes, but I thought love could fix that. Turns out she was just using me. One day I got a call from my lawyer. The divorce was almost finalized, and I was awarded full custody of the house, the savings, everything I had rights to. I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. Part of me wanted to scream, to rage at her for all the pain she caused, but another part just wanted to move on. I knew I had to let go of the anger, even if it was hard. I also started thinking about how I'd been so blind. I was so caught up in trying to keep our marriage afloat that I missed all the warning signs. She lied about her inheritance, she lied about her meetings, she lied about everything. And I let her because I loved her, or thought I did. Now I see that love sometimes means letting go, especially when betrayal is involved. Looking back, I realize how much I learned. Trust is fragile, and it can be shattered in an instant. I learned that some people are just manipulative and selfish, and no amount of love can fix that. I learned that standing up for myself is the only way to protect what's left. And I learned that revenge, in a way, is just reclaiming your dignity, the dignity she tried to strip from me. As I sit here reflecting, I know I'll be okay. It's going to take time, but I will heal. I'll rebuild my life, maybe find someone who truly cares, who doesn't lie or manipulate. I want to warn anyone out there. Don't ignore the signs. Don't let someone manipulate your trust, and always protect your assets. Because when someone is set on leaving, they'll do anything to get what they want, sometimes even destroy you in the process. And in the end, the only person who can truly protect you is yourself. Now, looking back, I realize how much this whole ordeal changed me, probably forever. I used to believe in happily ever after and the idea that love could conquer all. But reality hit hard. Lisa's betrayal was a wake-up call, a brutal lesson that not everyone has good intentions. I thought I knew her, thought I understood what marriage meant. Turns out I was just fooling myself. The worst part is how she played me, her constant lies, her fake tears, her manipulative words. She made me doubt myself, made me question if I was the one who was crazy. But I see it clearly now. She was the one with the real problem. Her selfishness, her greed, her need for excitement at any cost. She wanted the inheritance, the house, the savings, all of it, so she could run off and start a new life with Mark, leaving me behind like yesterday's trash. I've learned that sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is walk away. Not because you're weak, but because you're wise enough to know when to cut your losses. I've also learned that trust, once broken, is nearly impossible to repair. That's why I'm so careful now about who I let into my life, about what I share, about protecting myself. I've been through a lot of hurt, but I've also found some clarity. I know I'll be okay. I'll rebuild piece by piece. I've started focusing on myself, my health, my career, my future. I've realized that the most important relationship I have is with myself. And no matter how much someone tries to tear you down, you have the power to pick yourself up and move forward. To anyone reading this, don't ignore the warning signs. Trust your instincts. Don't let someone manipulate your love or your trust. Protect your assets, your heart, your mind. Because in the end, the only person who truly has your back is you. And even when betrayal cuts deep, time heals wounds. You just have to be willing to face the pain, learn from it, and keep moving forward. That's what I plan to do.